Hi guys, hello Hope Hub. Hi. I'm coming real close to the phone because I'm in a place with a lot of noise and a lot of music. I'm on vacation, so I'm not trying to wake up too early or be on a schedule in terms of my morning lifeline videos. But I did want to come here and just say hi to you all, a quick check-in, and maybe give you a word of encouragement that will take you through, whatever's left of the day. In my mind, it's not Monday. It feels like a Saturday, but of course it is Mindset Monday. And in my part of the world, it's Miracle Monday. I'm reading a book that I bought at the Walmart called When God Happens. When God Happens. So I'm sorry you can't see the cover of the book that well, but it's called When God Happens, True Stories of Modern Day Miracles by Angela Hunt and Bill Myers. So if you guys are looking for a really great book to read that talks about God's faithfulness, that talks about how God is still alive and well, that has testimonies and miracles and things that are of a supernatural nature, just go to your Walmart and get this book. Actually, not Walmart. Apparently I bought it at BJ's, and it's called When God Happens. So anyway, just a little bit about this book. Number one, the author is talking about how a lot of us have things that happen to us that are signs of God still being and moving on this earthly realm. However, many of us choose not to share those things that are of a miraculous nature, a supernatural nature, maybe because we think people will judge, or maybe we think that people will think we're crazy, right? But she also talks about how there's a danger in people looking for signs of God's supernatural and miraculous happenings on the earth. In fact, she says that Jesus said in Matthew 16:4, an evil and adulterous generation seeks for a sign. However, there's also a danger of suggesting that those people who have seen the miraculous hand of God are somehow special or more loved than the rest of us. And also there's a danger in not sharing and celebrating his miraculous doings today, because we're essentially putting our light under a bowl and refusing to let his light shine to an ever darkening world. So I think that's really awesome in terms of what this author is trying to do with this book. So whenever I see books like this that really talk about testimonies and miracles, I gravitate towards them and I'll grab them off the shelf. I guess they're intended for me. So when I saw this book, I was like, man, I gotta read it. And do you know, I have not been able to put this book down. And real quickly, because my phone is on 15%, I'll just tell you a little bit in terms of the couple of stories that I have read. Number one is, the first story is Miracle on Highway 6. And recently I had told you guys about a miraculous happening on a highway as well. And this story, it's really weird. This is from two different situations completely, but the signs and the things that happened in that particular highway crash are almost identical. In Miracle on Highway 6, the author describes God breaking the laws of space and time to empower a good Samaritan couple to help people who are in a car who had been stuck in a almost exploding car. Anyway, after this particular accident happened, basically it was a couple. They were driving to just get some food, and then on the way they saw an accident happen, and the couple, husband and wife, ran out of the safety of their car to save twin girls, a nanny, and then another individual in the other car. And the miracle that happened in the Miracle on Highway 6 is that each of these individuals in that accident saw angels at the scene, at least two angels. Two of those angels in every instance talked about how you will be fine. So one angel told the man who was stuck in the wreckage that he will be fine, and the couple who were trying to rescue them, one of the angels the couple each saw porcelain hands, like hands reach out and grab this individual from the fire, and miraculously he was saved. And also the nanny was saved. So that was the first miracle. The second story is a season of angels. Oh, the charger, yeah, I have 15%. The other story is about Oklahoma City. Hi, Lydia Nyamburanyam, saying thank you for saying hi. The second incident or story is about a young woman who she got a call from her mom right before the terrorist attack in Oklahoma. You remember that terrorist attack? Was it McVeigh? Whereby there was a child care center in the building, and a lot of, I think maybe public offices in the building. She was on her way to a church that was attached to that particular building and got really damaged in the explosion. But her mom called her like 5 minutes before she was trying to leave the building, to leave her house to go to work. And that phone call essentially saved her life, because just because her mom called her, I think her mom called her and told her, come, I need you to sign some insurance papers. And she goes to her mom's office, signs the insurance papers, and she's doing all this reluctantly, talking about I'm late for work. And then when she gets to the street where that building was, the building had exploded and had gone down in flames. So she talks about that particular miracle and how she felt that God, saved her in that instance. So the other miracle, just in case you guys are logging in, I'm reading a book called When God Happens. I'm reading Poolside. I love books that have information on miracles and testimonies that people hear. Look, I always say people here on the earthly realm, like I'm not part of the earthly realm, tell their stories. And in this book, the author is saying, basically, she looks for stories that are verifiable and actually publishes them. And this was her first book. So I'm going to look for other books, because I think they give us, they make us feel like, wow, God really does care about us uniquely. Not because of the signs that he shows us, but because he still appears here on earth as angels. Yes, as people as well who are kind and caring. And, we shouldn't be looking for signs. However, we should realize that he is still alive and well today. All right, so the third miracle, which I thought was really awesome, and I'm still getting through this book, was called She Wrote Miracle of God. And this story captures how God brought a newborn who was diagnosed as medically dead back to life. Hi, Emily. Hi. So this particular story actually made me tear up when I was reading it this morning, because it talks about how, I think that his name is Dennis Waitley. He's now an author. But in 1978, he and his wife were having a baby. It was the second child that they were having. And while they were in the hospital, on the day that they were supposed to have this child, all these doctors keep coming into the room, putting monitors on his wife's belly, and not saying anything. Then nurses are coming in, then specialists are coming in, and so finally a doctor pulls him aside and says, "Look, for the last hour or so, we've tried every single fetal monitor that we can find in this hospital. We've brought specialists and different people, and for whatever reason, your baby's heartbeat is not showing up anywhere in our system. We just keep hearing that one mother's heartbeat, right?" And so he says, what does that mean? And the doctor says, what that means is that based on all of our tests, that your baby will be stillborn and your baby is dead. And I think he even talks about how they weren't even calling it a baby anymore. They were saying the body, we have to extract the body. We have to perform an autopsy if you allow us, because it'll teach us different things about why babies become stillborn, because the baby was fine up until that day of delivery. And then they told him, we want you to be the one that tells your wife that this particular thing has happened. And be her comforter, because we feel that you're the right person to tell her the news. So the husband, he goes into the waiting room, he cries and cries, then he calls his friends, his family, because he's assuming that they'll want to be there to comfort them. And then he's trying to muster up the courage as to what am I supposed to exactly say to my wife. And someone, either like a friend of the family, happened to come to the hospital, and she told him, look, I want us to go into the chapel and pray about this situation before you even go tell your wife. And I want you to know that, I want you to pray that God gives you the understanding and the enlightenment, if not today, later on in life, as to why this had to happen. What is the purpose behind the pain that's happening in this instance? So they go to the chapel. He doesn't feel like doing it. He goes, he prays about it. He goes back to the hospital room to his wife, and he's in tears. And then she immediately, she knows something's wrong, and she says, what's wrong with the baby? I haven't felt the baby moving for at least almost 2 hours now. And the husband now, Dennis, he tells his wife, look, and they said, the baby's gone, that the baby has to be extracted, and we're gonna have to perform an autopsy. Like, so he's basically saying all the things that the doctor had said to him. And by then, she had been through a very tough labor, and she was just barely conscious. She was so tired. She started crying as well. And then the whole team came in, and they had to, prepare for the surgery for the baby to be extracted. So I wasn't sure if it doesn't say whether it was a C-section or whether it was actually like she had to deliver the baby, but it had to be extracted from her body. So the story goes that when the baby was removed, they heard the doctor exclaim, and the nurses ran to see what was going on. Oh, and the other piece I should have told you, and why the story is called She Wrote Miracle of God, was because when they went into the surgery, you know how the nurses will write down what exactly is happening, what kind of procedure is happening. There was a guest book or some kind of registration book in the surgery, in the unit in the surgery, and he saw the nurse write down stillborn, and so already he was like, it looks like that's the procedure she's writing down, is stillborn birth or something like that. So anyway, when he runs, when they hear the exclamations, the doctors say the baby just peed, and there's no way that a dead baby would pee. If the baby was dead and has been dead for like over an hour, there's no way you would see urine coming out of the baby. So immediately there was this flurry of activity, and people are coming into the ward, and the doctors are blowing oxygen and air, putting a tube down the baby's throat, blowing oxygen and air into the baby, pumping up the lungs. And, all this is happening. And so he's like, what's going on? What's going on? And so the doctors were like, the baby's not dead. The baby's very, very sick, but it appears that the baby is breathing, and we're doing our best to make sure that the baby remains breathing. And we're calling an ambulance to take the baby to the children's hospital, and we're going to do our best to make sure that the baby survives. So just keep praying and keep praying. So anyway, what happens in that ward is the nurse who had written on the book that the procedure that was about to happen was a stillborn birth, she went to the book and she crossed it out, and she wrote on top of it, Miracle of God. And when he looked at it, she looked at him and she said, there's no other explanation except that this is a miracle of God. And so I loved that story, not because that, of course, you're so happy that the baby survived, but he tells this story to illustrate a different point, because he says that as the child grew, this child was being seen by a pediatrician, a family doctor, like monitoring her heartbeat. And I'm gonna apologize because I'm not sure, I didn't underline exactly what was going on with the baby's why the baby's heartbeat had stalled. But what they found was that she had a condition that the heartbeat would beat every other heartbeat. I've never heard of that, but apparently there's a condition where a baby's heartbeat will beat and then skip a beat and then beat the next heartbeat. So that was the condition that the baby had. So anyway, as the baby was growing, the little girl, who was a girl, was growing, she was seeing this. Hi Samantha Mungai, I'm sorry you're coming mid-storytelling, but you can replay. So she ends up going to this family doctor, and this family doctor sees her over her years, growing as the child is growing. After maybe at like around when she was maybe 7 or 8 years old, this particular family doctor gets pregnant, and she's expecting, goes through the entire pregnancy, and then 9 months, at 9 months, the family doctor ends up having a stillborn child, like completely stillborn. The baby dies. And it was devastating to Dennis and his wife, who of course had gone through that experience before. And at that point was when he was reminded about the chapel experience, where he had gone in with a family friend, and the friend had said, God, please show this man at this point in his life, when he's going through this pain of telling his wife that their child will be stillborn, give him that understanding and that illumination for him to understand why he went through what it was he went through. And so at that point, when he knew the family doctor, who every time they went to visit, she was monitoring his little girl's heart, but he also, during the pregnancy, they would inquire about the baby, how's the baby doing, and she was so excited. And then so 9 months go by and the baby's stillborn. So he took pen and paper and he poured out his heart to this family doctor, who the maternity leave had expired. She had decided to stop completely practicing family medicine. She had fallen into a very deep depression. She was not working. She was not eating. She had completely just given up on life, right? So he puts pen to paper and he writes to her his whole experience, like what had happened and what had transpired in that hospital that day. And that God had, he had asked God to show him, why is he going through this pain, and what purpose is there for them to have gone through all that pain and crying over a child, and then have the child revive, wake up, and all of that. So he writes to the doctor and he says to her, I believe that you are going through this process because this pain is going to be purpose for you as well. That this pain will allow you to give some hope, give hope, especially because she was a family doctor and she would deliver children. And so he said, you're going to deliver many great births, but they're going to be those people, those women, those parents who will have children and their children have issues, be it stillbirth, be it any other thing. By you going through this experience, when people tell you, no, you do not understand what it is I'm going through. Because I remember in the hospital when I first had my child, you would be looking at your doctor and you're like, have you had children? Do you understand what it is I'm going through, right? You're always looking for someone who has that understanding. And he told her, by you going through this experience, you have walked the shoes of each and every person who is going to end up in a maternity ward, who will end up going home with a stillborn child instead of a beautiful child that's alive and healthy and well. And so he said he sent the letter, and after he sent the letter, she called him and she said, look, I wasn't hearing anyone else that tried to talk to me. Everyone who tried to intervene or talk to me about going back to practice medicine, I wasn't hearing them. But when I got that letter and I read it, I immediately called my hospital and I said I was coming back to work. And so she ended up practicing medicine until she was 68 and retired. And Dennis Waitley, let me see if I can find this. Dennis Hensley, oh my gosh, I've been calling him the wrong name all along. Dennis Hensley, that writes this story. He says, I am now 68 years old. 2 years ago, I saw in the paper that the doctor retired after many decades as a family physician. And oh, my daughter Jeanette, she is now a school teacher in Indiana with a husband and 2 healthy kids of her own. She had a pacemaker put in when she was 32, and she's doing just fine. So Dr. Dennis E. Hainsley, after that experience, he ended up becoming a professor. He ended up writing 60 books, including one of them is called Jesus in the 9 to 5. I'm not sure what that's about, but now I want to look it up. And Jesus in all 4 seasons. So I'm saying all this to say I'm actually on vacation, but these stories, when I read them, they give me hope, and they give me that understanding that there is purpose from every pain that we go through. You know, sometimes it's you know, it may not seem apparent at the time, but later on in life, the fact that you've gone through what you've gone through, that experience helps you empathize with others and helps you help others who are going through the same thing, and you help them survive, and you help them live out, you know, another day. And the other thing that I've noticed with pain as well is when people go through pain, it also opens up their eyes to God. It helps you see God, and it helps you hear God more during those times. So if you're going through a time of pain currently, and you're wondering what is this pain about, listen to the still voice of God. Take time in your closet, take time to pray, take time to just be still and read the Word of God, because at those times, those are the times that God manifests Himself even more clearly. I think in our lives, it seems to me that your eyes are open up wider. They open up wider. Hi, Mokapi, that's my cousin. Yeah, so I'm coming in at a weird time. I usually come in the morning on Hope Hub, and I'm reading the book When God Happens, and I was just relaying some of the miraculous things that I'm reading about, the testimonies in the book, people's amazing stories of God's faithfulness in their lives, and just the supernatural things that have happened in their lives. And I'm like halfway through the book, and I'm just encouraged. And so I just thought, let me come here and encourage someone. This is my hope lifeline for your day. And that's it. God bless you. It's very nice here in Virginia. Well, let me say, it's been raining actually all morning. But when people are on vacation, they don't care. It's like kunanyesha, like it's raining, people are in the pool. And what other people are in the pool? My husband, my kids, they're in the pool. Because I guess it's 80 degrees. There's Shadi. Is he here? Yeah. So it's 80 degrees, but it's raining. And since morning, people have been out here. Otherwise, that's it, y'all. Take care. Ciao.